Good evening. My name is Catherine Walton Elliott. I'm a member of the Olympia Indivisible Endorsement Research Team. My teammate on this call is Rachel Jackson, and we also have some other team members sitting in as well. This evening, we are joined by Leatta Dahlhoff, who is running for the position of City of Tumwater Mayor. This interview is being recorded and will be available for public viewing on the Olympia Indivisible website. Thank you so much for joining us, Leatta. I hope you'll be able to share some specific information during the interview today, but I am just going to remind everyone that we only have 30 minutes to cover a lot of ground. So anywhere you can keep things concise we'd be very grateful, just so we can get all those wonderful topics we want to get to. Would you mind starting us off with a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Leatta Dahlhoff. I'm running for Tumwater Mayor to turn on and turn up everyone's love of Tumwater. I grew up in Tumwater. My parents chose Tumwater, and I choose to stay in Tumwater. For me, it's about dealing with everyday issues. So I started on the Planning Commission because I was really involved in why things are the way they are. Have you ever, gone by something and said, well, how did that get there? Or like, how did that get there? So it started with Planning Commission. Then things were coming back from council. And I was like, why are these coming back? So then I was like, all right, what does that policy look like? How do we shape our future of Tumwater? So I joined Tumwater City Council in 2018. And then there's been some things going with priorities, right? And leadership, and what does that look like, and the voices that we have, and what we can influence. And I really want Tumwater to be known as a place for innovation and environmental stewardship. So that is the main reason why I chose to run for the mayor of Tumwater. It is a strong mayor form of government. It means the mayor is in the executive branch of government. It means the mayor sets the tone and sets the cadence. And I want to help shape and model our future together.
Thank you. That's a helpful overview, and I love hearing about your pathway to this campaign. So we're interested if you could share the top one or two priorities and or concerns that Tumwater constituents have been sharing either with you or you've heard through the council. And then following up on that, how will you ensure that constituent voices are heard and incorporated into city decisions?
Great. Thanks, Catherine. For me, the top thing is being responsive, right? So some recent examples is River's Edge. The staff, when they're leaving River's Edge, the light wasn't turning. So they were getting out and hitting the crosswalk, or they were running the light. And I was like, you don't need to run the light. Like, we have a technician. So I took that information, forwarded it to staff. They checked it. The person came out, right, and it wasn't fixed. And he looked a little deeper, and it was a cobweb that was messing up the sensor. One simple fix, right? So it's hearing issues, identifying options, and implementing solutions. And that is my jam. Recent examples, some safety issues with lights being synced and people not being able to get out of the Barnes neighborhood. So I took that information, I forwarded it to staff. Staff are going to check the syncing of the lighting. They want to know who to get back to. So I talked to the person, and the person's like, oh, not me, but talk to Pellegrinos, talk to Gunnarsson Dental, talk to so-and-so, and gave the information. I forwarded it back on, and staff is on to that. That's the kind of stuff I love to do. The top two issues for me recently have been senior protections. So in our past budget, council approved doing a line item called senior protections. And we're partnering with Rebuilding Together Thurston County to do fixes on homes, to keep seniors in their home and to make sure their homes are healthy and safe. So we have $25,000 each year for a total of $50,000 each biennium. That's one thing. One thing is human services. What does that look like with federal dollars getting cut, nonprofits losing their funding, even state employees, which is a big demographic of our area, losing funds. So what does that safety net of services look like? And so everything I do, it goes through two lenses. Does it improve lives? Excuse me, allergies.
It's okay.
And does it expand opportunities and never at the expense of our environment, right? Because this is the one planet that we have. So senior protection is a big one, and just overall services. So for me, my three pillars are connection, community health, and the rural urban lifestyle. That is really, really important to me in Tumwater. I love having the bunny rabbits in my yard. I love having the deer that eats my apples, right? I love stargazing. I love hearing the football game. from my house. I love watching the air show. I love taking flying lessons in Tumwater. I love that rural environment. And so the green spaces. So refocusing development on Capitol Boulevard and the Brewery District. So you said one or two. I'm going to do three. So connection, that's access to sidewalks, access to intercity transit, community health, that's body worn cameras for police, and redevelopment and that urban rural lifestyle.
So I'm hearing these are important issues for your campaign and from your perspective. Are these things you've been hearing from constituents? They are. Okay.
Right. Everything that I'm moving forward on council and I want to do as mayor comes from my neighbors. And my
Okay.
neighbors are 18 square miles of Tumwater. It is everyone. I'm really involved and active in our community, and I have a rescue pug, Beatrice, that I walk daily. So I get to talk to everybody, right? Because everyone, I match her outfits to mine when I walk, which I feel like is a normal thing to do. So Beatrice is a great conversation starter. And because I've been here since I've been 18 months old, I know a lot of people, and relationships are really, really important to me. So I never do anything in a silo, and I never do anything because of me personally. I got to check in, and it has to be based on community, those who live, work, play, and visit here, our tribal governments, my seatmates on council, our boards and commission, and our staff. I need them all to be successful. And also the nonprofits I am on the boards of, the organizations I'm a member of. I never just pull anything out of thin air and goes, oh, let's do this. It's
Yeah,
based on people, and I always ask for their permission to give their name, so I'm not just making up people.
that makes sense. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for expanding on that a bit. Um, so one specific group that we've seen under severe threat nationwide recently are trans folks. And I'm just curious, what specific actions will you take as mayor of Tumwater to protect transgender people and to promote belonging at the municipal level? Just feeding on from that, producing safety and listening to constituents.
Yeah, I just got a message from Ty at the Olympian to give him a comment. We're doing a Pride Proclamation tomorrow, Tuesday, for council. And so for me in Tumwater, when I talk about inclusion, that means we all belong, right? So the school district is a different governing entity, revised code of Washington chapter, I think it's like 28, right? And council is RCW chapter 35. We overlap with our constituents, right?
Mhm.
So if council and the boards and commission of staff are going one way of inclusion, equity, diversity, and defining that, and we have a school board going in a different direction, that's a problem, right? And we need to have those conversations. We've asked for a meeting with the board. It also comes down to who is running. So I'm doing a coordinated campaign with Melissa Beard and Julie Watts, and we're going to be knocking on doors together along with Megan Sullivan, who's running for the Michael Althauser's open seat. So for me, is I think the city needs to circle back with the school board, build that relationship, but also set expectations and manage expectations. If we're going one way, we need them to be included in that. And
Mhm.
so all youth, all, however your gender, however you identify, whatever your skin color, whatever your background, whatever your political beliefs, if we're talking about Tumwater, the Tumwater I know that believes in neighborliness, honesty, trustworthy, hard work, and that everyone belongs, it comes down to me for how do we treat our neighbors and how do you want your neighbors to treat you?
Thank you. Um, so actually feeding on from that, one piece of creating a strong city and a strong neighborhood is public safety. I know you mentioned that several times in your questionnaire. Could you let us know how you would define public safety?
It's going to be different for different people in our community, right? Based on their experiences. So one example I've been talking about is volunteer patrol, volunteer community members. We've had requests from 3 different manufactured home parks being targeted, cars getting broken into, trying to break into their homes, and lack of lighting. So
Mm,
safety to lighting, to accessibility to inner city transit, to bus stops, to sidewalks, right? One of the things is I'm still in a rural area of Southwest Tumwater. I don't have a sidewalk. Okay. So the sidewalk's on the other street, but my mother in a scooter, how do I get her to
mm.
that sidewalk? So that could be one element, just your surroundings, but also it's that community conversation. What does it mean for you? And listening and taking that info. So I would love to have volunteer patrols in manufactured home parks, so a presence, but really defining. There's a community survey we have out right now, which is live, which has an element for police and fire. It's taking that, but also looking at the demographics of who replied to that survey. Most of our surveys, when we look at the demographics, are middle-aged women who fill it out. So that's one example. What about all the other examples? I've heard many examples from OSHO, the Cultural Community Center in Tumwater. I'm a member of the National Organization for Women. I'm a member of NAACP. I'm a member of League of Women Voters. So taking that intel and taking it back and giving it to council when I'm mayor to go, okay, what policies do we need to adopt? I currently serve on public health and safety. We've asked for some statements regarding immigration in Tumwater to make a statement, and the executive branch has said they'll take it under consideration. We have asked for the reinstatement of the Tumwater Safe program, which we started during the pandemic, where we had logos where something was happening. They removed that program. Council's asked for that to be reinstated. They're taking it under consideration. So the difference is being on council and we're in the legislative branch of government, and we're asking for something from the executive branch, and it doesn't happen in a timely manner, is another reason why I'm running. So when we get that feedback, we take action. So there's a lot of different elements, but at the end of the day, I don't get to define that. Our community gets to define that. It's going to be different for different people.
That's fair. What would you've covered your top priorities when it comes to public safety and Tumwater? It sounds like you have about physical space and having community involvement. Would that be accurate? Do you want to add anything to that in terms of top priorities?
I just heard from someone recently who said, I don't want to go to Tumwater. I don't feel welcome in Tumwater. So that's one thing is if we talk about belonging, we talk about inclusion, we say that we're welcome to everyone, but then I hear specifically from someone who I really admire saying, I don't want to go to Tumwater. I'll go to the Costco and Lacey. I'll go to the Fred Meyer and Lacey. It's a different demographic. Everyone looks different, and I don't feel safe coming in the Tumwater. So part of that as well, things that I would like to do is the executive branch of government has been talking about an equity commission, starting that up in Tumwater. Well, they budgeted 32 hours. To me, that shows it's not really a priority for budgeting 32 hours. So setting up that equity commission, also setting up a youth council. This is feedback that we have gotten to address those issues, is another way to get that intel of what is working, what could be better, to then help council shape that policy. And then my job as the mayor is to execute that policy with staff. So it's other things as well. There's also been racial profiling, racial targeting, immigration, all that stuff. We have made it clear on council and confirmed with our police that they do not work with ICE. They will not work with ICE. They have not worked with ICE, right? Comes down to technology. I've been at council has been asking for body-worn cameras for a couple of years for transparency and accountability, not just of our police officers, but of our community, right? And efficiency and effectiveness and using technology. When all the police officers are trained in the Criminal Justice Training Center, they're getting trained on that technology. Tumwater needs to keep pace with that. The one challenge I do have with technology is the flock system. I have a lot of questions about access to data and what it's used for. Currently, the price is more reasonable. It's easier to digest because it's open access. So what if someone in Texas is looking for a license plate in Washington because someone's getting healthcare in Tumwater? That's a problem, right? What if ICE is using that to identify someone in Tumwater? That's a problem. So those are questions that council has asked, referencing, I think it's an ACLU document from a couple of years ago with some examples of some draft policies. So that is something we are circling back, asking for that update of what does access look like, because if any of that is allowed, then it's a no for me, right? And that goes to safety as well. So there's a lot of stuff with technology and hearing from our community, knowing that just because I haven't experienced it or understand it doesn't mean it's not valid and it's not real and that person experienced it. And so how do I adjust and help council update policies to better reflect meeting the needs of all of our constituents?
Thank you. That's very helpful. sort of following on from that, but maybe very briefly, because I'd love to get us into some environmental pieces as well, which
Me
I have a
too.
feeling
Yes.
you would love to talk about too. So very briefly, there was a recent directive of the Thurston Regional Planning Council to leave the draft regional transportation plan intact without revising language concerning equity and climate change. Well, there's an environmental piece. We'll use this as a bridge related to federal administration executive orders. What are your thoughts briefly on that
I talked to
recent
some of those.
occurrence?
Yes, I've talked to some of those members. Here is where I am at personally. You've done work and it's been embedded into everything that you're doing. You're already a target. There's a list that came out in Thurston County is on it. So it's every jurisdiction. So why would you adjust your morals and values to downplay or to get less attention when we're already targeted? So my thing is I did not agree with that, and I've talked to the members about that. And then when it went farther up, it was not accepted. I'm not going to acquiesce, and I'm also not going to judge people for being scared and wanting to not lose that funding and get those projects and serve our community. I get that, but I would never. I cannot adjust my values because I'm worried about someone else, and that's kind of like my disposition. I'm known for sticking my neck out for things that are really, really important because if we don't speak up, then who's going to? So I understand how that came about because of the projects coming down the pipeline and we won't be able to do them. But there's no guarantee, right?
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, all that stuff is going to be found unlawful. So why would we change it? Why don't we just keep the course? Why change our language? So I did not agree with it. And I also understood
Right.
where they were going, and I would be a no.
Okay. Thank you for stating your position firmly on that. Um, so, getting into some environmental pieces. Now, being aware that the Port of Olympia is responsible for the Olympia Regional Airport, we're still curious about whether you have any thoughts to share on the Olympia Regional Airport, conversations around that, particularly in relation to the environmental impact statement appeal that's been talked about recently.
Yeah. So just confirming, I'm speaking on myself, not council hat.
Right. This is
Um,
you individually.
this is just me. I just want
Yeah.
to. The last meeting we had, a joint meeting with council and the port commissioners were open to doing an EIS or having that conversation. I think they should do an EIS, right? If there's questions and if that's the challenge, the kerfuffle, the hurdle to getting to yes, then we should look at that. At the end of the day, the port is the largest landowner in Tumwater. I need to get to yes. I'm looking to do, I need a success story with the port and the county. One idea that we had is a paint drop off site that could be seasonal, right? And it'd be an extension of like Hazelhut or extension of the solid waste advisory group, right? Those services to rural residents to divert waste from a landfill, be a green business, it'd be a win-win, right? Those are the kind of things I'm looking at. I'm also been talking to the commissioners about modern manufacturing and what that means. And to me, modern manufacturing has a baseline of green and sustainable. That's just the way we move forward. So again, going back to I want Tumwater being a place to known for innovation. I believe the port could be that space for battery energy storage systems, community solar. Been talking to them about that. We're doing community solar on our fire stations. What does that look like in Tumwater? And how do we attract businesses that have a sustainable element woven into everything that they do? I need the port to be successful with that in those areas. So I think they should do an EIS. I used to contribute to that work when I worked at the Department of Ecology. If that's going to be what stops any forward progress of working together and building our community, then why wouldn't we just do an EIS? Just do it.
So I was interested in what you were saying about getting green business into Tumwater and City, whether it's through the port or through other venues. And so a lot of businesses though have a warehouse component or a large building component that's not housing, it's not small businesses. How do you What's your perspective on allowing that sort of building in the area, and particularly like say they're a green business, but they're looking to put up a warehouse? How do you balance those different elements of a business looking to to be in Tumwater?
Yeah. Uh, we're looking at the zones that are zoned light industrial and industrial anyway, and those buildings are already there, right? So how do you redevelop a building that's already there? You're talking about new development. If it's zoned industrial, it's zoned industrial. What does that look like? So we have environmental protections in place that they have to abide. We have limitations on the square footage of warehouses. We don't allow distribution centers in Tumwater. So there are ways that we have been moving, saying this is a yes, this is a no, but I can't say legally that no, that business can't come, but you do
Mm-hmm.
that through your codes, right? So if there's something that needs to be updated, that should be updated, and we're working on that right now in our comprehensive plan elements to allow more flexibility. But you're in the zone. If it's general commercial, light industrial, the buildings are there. How do you utilize that and not expand that footprint, but use the zoning that's there? And I am always open to adjusting and modifying, but we do have strong environmental codes that we will not vet. So whenever a business comes in, they have to meet the current, because technology is adapting and changing so quickly, right? And the thresholds we have to do with your greenhouse gas emissions, right? From anything for procurement, we've been working on that a lot, of even what the city is using for cleaning, right? Discharging, the water, right? Working with lot, all that stuff, we're there, and we're always open to adapting and modifying to make sure that our air, land, and water are preserved, because it's very, very important to me.
Thank you for that. Um, so, kind of leading on from that, another zoning area, housing. Everyone wants to talk about housing, right? Because we have a real shortage in the state. Um, you mentioned in your questionnaire the term attainable housing. Could you share a little bit more about your preference for attainable housing versus affordable housing?
Yes, I've been using that recently. When we talk about affordable to who, right? What federal definition of the area median income are you looking at? Are you doing 120? You're doing 100? You're doing 80? You're doing 50? There's all these different definitions, but when I'm talking to someone, I'm using what's attainable for you? Where are you at, and what type of housing do you need in your stage and phase of life? Right? So example is, I have a couple people, their kids are going off to college. They want to downsize, but they can't get what they want for the price that they paid, right? So they're going to stay where they're at, and their kids, one of them graduated, can't find housing, so is still living at home. So
Mm.
that intergenerational housing. So what's attainable for you at whatever phase of your life? And that's what I've been doing, because when you say affordable, they're like, well, I'll never afford it. I can't afford anything, right?
Mm.
And so I was like, I've been using attainable because it helps me then define to them what's attainable to them. What are you looking for? What do you need? And then how can I figure out those costs of impact fees and connection fees and all that kind of stuff with Tumwater to do a matrix, right? I would love to do a homeschool. We've been asking for that. That still hasn't been on our agenda. I would love to incentivize green building, right? So that at the end of the day, the life cycle analysis, your bills are lower. So what does that look like, where you're coming in and you're like, okay, this is what I want, and then these are the options, and I incentivize green building, right? And different sizes of housing. I love Habitat for Humanity, that cottage style like the housing. I love that concept, because I also really want to build community, because when you have community, you have resilience, and that helps us keep going. So I say attainable because it's different for everybody, and I need to know what that means to them.
That makes sense. Unfortunately, we don't have time. I would love to ask you how you're finding out what that means to a variety of people, but
Yeah,
I am also
Catherine, we
aware
can do a follow-up.
that we're nearly out of time. Yes, maybe we'll have to do that. Um, so I just briefly, I want to check, do you have any self-imposed guidelines on the sources of your campaign revenue? We're curious about that. Just, and then we'll probably have to wrap up after
Yeah,
that.
it's, in Tumwater, a lot of people don't come to Tumwater races and ask, right? So I focus on unions. I'm a union member. So I have the Thurston Lewis Mason Central Labor Council. I would like to get local 872. It was the union I was in at Ecology. I would like to get 443 because I'm in that. I have police and fire, which is half of our staff. I had the Northwest Women's Political Caucus. I just got Thurston County Democrats. So those are the ones. I just got the email for the Sierra Club. That's the one I've gotten in the past. So environmental focus, and union focus has usually been my jam, but I don't get a lot of other ones. I like one cycle I interviewed for Thurston County Realtors and I didn't get it. Like mid sentence, I should just go. I should just go. So it's usually environmental groups and unions because that's who I am at my core is being of service and protecting the environment.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to wrap up in a second so we don't get cut off, but is there anything, any really highlights that we haven't touched on that you'd like to touch on before we wrap up?
I feel like the job of mayor in Tumwater is to make everyone a little uncomfortable because that means you're all giving and you're part of it. So my sweet spot is to get everyone to go, well, I don't necessarily like it, but I get it, right? I want people to leave with curiosity. I want us to remember that we're neighbors and that one thing doesn't define us, but collectively we're stronger together. And I want us to model the way. And Tumwater is really, really special. I grew up here. I love Tumwater. Like I love Tumwater. And when you love something, you go above and beyond and you do extraordinary things for what you love. So I appreciate your time. I would love your endorsement. It would mean a lot to me. Um, I just thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I am really appreciative of having a chance to hear more about your position in your campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.